Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Hunt. I am the EMDR therapist here at Monarch All Health, and I wanted to do a quick overview of what EMDR is, how it works, and who could benefit from it. So EMDR stands for eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. And it is a psychotherapy approach that helps people heal from distressing memories, particularly those related to trauma. So in the brain, there's a part of your brain when you're just going about your life normally that is, you can imagine neatly filing away your memories. Imagine a file cabinet, just neatly one after the other, filing away your memories. And eventually those memories are processed and they are sent to short-term memory and then long-term memory. And that's why when you think about last Thanksgiving, maybe you overate, maybe you got sick and maybe you went and laid down. You can think about that happening, but in this moment, you're not feeling bloated or stuffed or tired, you can remember it without feeling those feelings. So trauma and distressing memories are different. When trauma or distressing memories or memory fragments get triggered, we react as if it's happening now because those memories were not processed correctly. When the distressing event happens, something that threatens our emotional or our physical safety, adrenaline floods the body and all non-life-saving processes go offline. So that includes that part of your brain that's neatly processing your memories in the file cabinet. So they get all, imagine just files being set right on top of the file cabinet, right? And so they're lurking in our subconscious. And when they get triggered, we have an overreaction. An overreaction can look like a million different things, but our reaction is not proportional to what's happening now. So for some example, a person who's been in a serious accident, maybe every time they get in the car, their heart starts pounding and they, get flooded with adrenaline, and it's the past becoming present. Or someone doesn't call me back for a long time and suddenly I start spiraling. Do they not like me anymore? I'm panicked. Or a partner maybe, looks at another man or woman and we become so jealous and enraged because we've been betrayed in the past, and that all comes bubbling up. It can look like a million different things, but what it is an overreaction to what is happening. Now, you do not need to remember the original trauma to be able to process the trauma. So I think that's a very interesting point. So for example, you can come and say, listen, Jenny, I've always been afraid of heights ever since I can remember. I don't know what that's connected to. I don't know the original trauma memory, but I know that I overreact every time I have to go up an elevator or on a balcony or any of those sorts of things. I panic and have a really strong reaction. That's fine. We can target the overreaction if you don't remember the original trauma. So that's one of the things I really like about EMDR, is that we don't need to remember everything that happened in our lives that could have led up to our overreaction. So what EMDR does is it desensitizes those memories and memory fragments, meaning it removes the trigger and reprocesses those memories and puts them back into short-term, long-term storage, explicit memory where they belong, instead of lurking around the subconscious and jumping out every time something happens, if that makes sense. So who can benefit from EMDR? That is a very long list. So a lot of people understand trauma now. I think it's being talked about more often. So certainly, veterans or, people that first responders or, doctors that have seen some very horrific scenes with their eyes, abuse, physical, psychological, sexual, all of that, sexual assault, survivors, I think we know when I talk about trauma, I think most people think of those things, those big things that we all know that are traumatic, car accidents, anything like that. So I'm going to mention a few things that maybe also are well helped by EMDR, but maybe we don't think of them immediately when we think about trauma. So emotional and psychological abuse, childhood neglect, medical trauma, that's a big one. If you've very nervous or panicked when you have to go get a medical test, if you've had a long hospital stay or a painful operation, or you simply have an illness that you've never been able to get diagnosed and nobody believes your symptoms, that is all medical trauma, and we can definitely target that. Bullying, witnessing violence, racial, gender, and identity-based discrimination or harassment, relationship losses, financial strain. I think a lot of families are feeling financial strain and stress. Living with an addicted or mentally ill family member, or even having an addicted, even if they don't live with you, that can be very stressful and traumatic. Betrayal trauma, vicarious trauma. So if you are a first responder, if you're a therapist, or if you work, in areas where you see things happening that are traumatic, just witnessing or hearing about other people's trauma can be traumatic. Financial strain, that's a big one. Immigration stress, eating disorders, phobias or anxiety disorders, depression, including postpartum depression, grief and loss, huge one, huge thing that EMDR is really great with treating. Panic disorders, intrusive thoughts, adjustment disorders, postpartum anxiety, stress-related issues, night terrors, dysphoric milk ejection reflex or DMER, performance anxiety. That's a big one for people who have pressure to perform in their lives and their jobs. If you feel panicked when you have to speak in front of a crowd or give a presentation, we can work on that with EMDR. And if you just feel like I've kind of stagnated in my therapy, then typically let's take a look at what your history says, and we can probably find something we can target with EMDR. So things I love about EMDR, number one, minimal disclosure. And what does that mean? You do not need to talk about your trauma in any detail for us to process it. There is not a lot of talking. Most of it is processing. So for instance, I give the example of someone who suffered sexual abuse. What I would need to know about that would be my uncle by the pool, age 8. That's it. I don't need details. You don't need to talk about it. Sometimes that can be re-traumatizing for someone to have to talk about. So I want people to know that you do not have to give me any kind of detailed information on the traumas that we're working on. A lot of this is going on in your head, right? We're helping your brain with the dual awareness stimulation to process trauma and put it back where it should belong, so it's no longer getting triggered. Another benefit of EMDR is that it's very fast acting. So our first session together, we'll do some prep work for EMDR. We'll decide what we're going to work on, where we're going to start, all those things. We get to know each other a little bit. The second one, we get to processing. And usually 3 to 4 processing sessions is the maximum that you're going to need in my experience. When you look at scientific literature on EMDR, those experiments and things like that are based on 4 sessions of EMDR versus 10 to 12 sessions usually of whatever other trauma-based protocol they're using. So I think that's very interesting. It's fast acting. So anyway, if you have questions about EMDR, talk to your therapist. You know, we can definitely set up a meeting for me. You know, we can meet initially and we'll just see if you think EMDR can benefit you, and you can let me know what's going on and what you would like to target. And I think that's it. So thank you for letting me talk about EMDR, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.